G'day, security experts, insight into this. I'm joined by Rory Steyn, security expert, and of course former bodyguard to Nelson Mandela. He runs eNCA Global Security. Rory, thank you so much for joining us. We know that in that room last night, the two ministers and probably the deputy minister as well had VIP protection officers with them. Do you think that they did the right thing by just letting this simmer for a while, that they didn't seem to escalate the matter at all? What is your reading of how it was handled by the VIP protection officers who we understand were also in the room?
Good evening, Sally, and everybody listening. I'm not sure whether that was a conscious decision taken by those VIP protection police officers to let it simmer. However, my comment will be, because I wasn't there and I don't want to speculate, but my comment is that there are, when you mount a protection operation, whether it's for a president or a cabinet minister or a commercial VIP, certain roles are prescribed and hopefully stuck to. So the role of the personal protector is first and foremost to, if possible, identify the threat and remove their principal from that threat. And if that's not possible, as would appear was the case last night, then you leave the actual hard fighting, if you want to put it into those terms, to a unit such as the Special Task Force, and we use them many times, for example, when we took President Mandela into high-risk areas. So you would have, excuse me, that's my alarm telling me I need to get onto the court. I do apologize.
No problem.
So you would have the Special Task Force or even the National Defence Force, South African National Defence Force, in an auxiliary role to the protectors. So if that was a conscious decision, then I have to commend it because it was the right decision. And what you do not want to do in an instance like this, where you've got people who have been trained previously in military and other tactics, who are potentially armed, what you don't want to do is take any action that would inflame the situation to the extent that it endangers your VIP. So I think that the correct action was taken. And let's remember that the South African Police Services Special Task Force is a proper outfit, Sally. We are known as one of the top urban terror outfits in the world because we operate in South Africa, sadly, in many respects, in an environment of actual threat, where many other police special forces units, such as that urban terror units, probably operate more in an environment of potential threat. Here, it's real. And if you look at the statistics of hostage releases and that sort of thing, you'll notice that the South African Police Services Special Task Force are right up there with the number of actual cases that they deal with every year.
You can hear that the police minister was really pleased with how they performed, and he basically told us that they're the creme de la creme. These are the top people. So talk to me about the special police force. How do they get to this level of expertise? And when they come into a hostage situation, because we understand that they use stun grenades and basically stormed the door, what sort of intel would they have had to gather in terms of deciding how to approach this situation? Because, of course, one wrong move and it could have all gone horribly wrong.
Absolutely, especially in this instance where, as I've said, you were dealing with people with military or other training, and they are potentially armed. So it's a very good question, Sally, because the intelligence and the amount of information, operational information available to that unit prior to them deciding on what the strategy and the tactic is going to be that they are going to deploy is absolutely critical. So as much information as could be gleaned needs to be done so, and done so in a very short time, especially if there are lives at stake. And I just want to point out one thing quickly, Sally, and that is this, that yes, we had two cabinet ministers and one deputy minister who were abducted. But it doesn't matter who the people were that were abducted. Anybody whose life and freedom is taken away for a very short period of time, as was the case, means that the police have to act. So they would have probably have spoken to those police VIP protectors, anybody else who was on the scene, any other eyewitnesses who could tell them things like how many, where are they armed, and then the action taken to deploy stun grenades is a very typical one, because a stun grenade is thrown into a room. It's really a concussion blast that goes to disorientate. So before the door is kicked in or knocked in, there is this period of disorientation that plays into the hands of in this case the task force coming through the door. So that's a very typical tactic, and I'm really glad that it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say that, yes, even for ordinary people being taken hostage, we would have to be as serious. But the reality is there is a political element to this. And I've been listening to people throughout the day, and some people saying, well, you could almost see it. When you take the Minister of Defence hostage, that could be seen as seriously as an attempted coup, because she is in charge of our defence mechanisms. So, yes, you're right, of course, every life is equally precious. But when it comes to the political aspect and the fact that we had two ministers, one in the presidency, one the defence minister and the deputy defence minister, who, for all we knew, at certain points in the evening, their lives could have been seriously at risk. How seriously do you take it? Obviously, the minister saying, look, we're okay, we weren't hurt, we wanted to leave, but we couldn't. But how would you, from a security point of view, sort of assess the seriousness of this?
Well, precisely. So what I'm saying is that irrespective of whomever was abducted, it's serious. But, before we start making noises and pointing fingers like, this is Banana Republic behavior, let us remember that not too long ago we saw very similar scenes in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and in the world's greatest economic power. So I just wanted to give that some kind of context. But the fact, as you say, that it is it was the Minister of Defence and another cabinet colleague as well as a deputy minister means that the people that perpetrated that abduction, Sally, were kind of operating under the impression of some kind of impunity, that we're untouchable, that nothing can happen to us. So absolutely, just like we pointed the finger at the police for possibly not acting fast enough when the looting and the burning of a few months ago started, in this case, they have to be commended for the swiftness of their action. And the police minister is absolutely correct. I think he used a 10-minute example. He said at 10 to 10, they arrived on scene, and at 10 o'clock, the issue had been resolved. That is commendable in any context. So I think they did a fine job.
I mean, that is certainly reassuring. But I want to talk to you about the general security atmosphere in our country. You alluded to the July unrest, where I think, everyone was shocked. We were taken by surprise. No one thought it could escalate so very quickly. Also, what happened yesterday, we saw former President Jacob Zuma taking pot shots at ANC leadership, and we know that he has got close ties to a number of military veterans. We are 2 weeks out from an election. Also, we know that earlier in the week, these military vets were making threats outside Luthuli House, saying, we've got guns. If you bring your guns, we've got our guns. Mondli Gungubela, the minister, saying no one could have anticipated this, that it could escalate. And I think he's speaking to the trust relationship around the ongoing meetings this group had had. But if you look at the broader security situation in our country, where we are, what alert level should we be on in terms of vigilance right now?
Well, I think that precisely because the 1st of November is the date that has been set for the local government elections, the alert level should automatically be higher. And when you think back to April of 1994, the alert level in the country was even higher than it is now. If you remember, Sally, there were all those right-wing bombings. Yeah. I think there were 5 consecutive nights leading up to immediately before the 27th of April 94 where a bomb exploded somewhere in Joburg. So I'm saying that it's not without precedent. I am also saying, however, that the wake-up call that was the looting of a few months ago does speak to the fact that perhaps our police service and our law enforcement agencies are not where they should be. However, last night's police action was by a very highly trained and very specifically equipped police unit. And that's very different from the average cop out there, the average man or woman in that thin blue line that ultimately stands in the gap for us all. I think we have to make that distinction. But I do think that leading up to the elections, there's not going to be the complacency, and certainly that there's not going to be the catching the police on the back foot that there was. I think that all of us know now that these kinds of things can happen. As bizarre as that incident was last night, where you've got cabinet ministers being abducted, or anybody for that matter, as I've constantly said, I don't think that it's going to catch us unawares now. Leading up to the 1st of November, we would be absolutely silly if we didn't plan properly for that day, for those elections.
Indeed,
and I think we would far better prepared than we would have been.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. Much appreciated. That, of course, is Rory Steyn from NSA Global Security. He's a security analyst. Of course, he used to guard Nelson Mandela. Now, the